Okay. So we have to speak.
Yep, we're ready to go.
Okay, can everybody hear?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, Dave, can we hear you?
Yeah, well, can you hear me?
Yeah, we
Yep.
can hear you. Perfect.
Yep.
Okay, so Mayor Arnott had to go in for surgery today on an issue. He is out of surgery now and all seems to be well, but in light of that, we need to have a mayor to run the meeting today. So if someone wants to appoint someone.
I'll make a motion that Councillor Grant is the chair for this meeting.
Second.
All right. Look, we lost you there. Okay, so anyone opposed to that? So seeing no opposed, we'll get on with the meeting. So we'll call the meeting to order, and our first order of business is adoption of the agenda.
I'll move it.
And all those in favor? I can't see because there's a big thing on the screen. So Pat, I assume you're in favor?
Oh, in favor. Yeah, I have my hand up. You can't see it. Got it.
In front of the screen. Okay, so we're good to go with that. So we have a delegation today regarding integrated regional transit, and we have David Frisch, Angela Holmes, and Alana Malala. You guys have 10 minutes and then some questions. So you're up. Way you go.
Yeah, well, thanks very much, councillors. And let's see, I think we're going to get our slideshow up there.
Okay. Hang on, we're just.
Well, you go ahead and do that. I'm just gonna go through my introduction then, because the first slide is actually not super crazy.
You got it now anyway, Dave.
Okay, yeah, I see it there. So yeah, thanks very much, guys. And I'd also like to thank you guys for the support you've given the Integrated Regional Transportation Select Committee over the last years. I know that Councillor Price did a lot of work with us on that, and now Councillor Bissinger sitting in that seat has been very helpful, so I really appreciate that. Thanks. I think all of you know who I am. I'm Dave Frisch, Councillor with the City of Courtenay and Chair of the IRTSC. We'll just shorten it to that for now. And hopefully we get Angela Holmes back. She's the vice chair, and she has a long history with active transportation, including a lot of work she's done with School District 71 on the Safe Routes program she was working on. And we have Alana Mulally, Senior Manager of Sustainability and Regional Growth Strategy Planning here at the Regional District. Our purpose today is, well, it's sort of threefold. It's to introduce you to the idea of working together on active transportation. We're here to explain the vision of the Regional Transportation Memorandum of Understanding, and we're here to request your feedback on that MOU, and ultimately to seek your support and participation in the process laid out in this MOU. So before we get started, let me give you some background. And do we have Angela with us? I don't see her. Nope, and I don't hear. So I will just jump in for Angela. We'll go to slide 2 here, the background. This sort of work started off with the Cycling Task Force back in 2012, and their mandate, of course, was specifically to do with cycling. And you guys had representation on that as well. And they did a lot of good work bringing experts to town to talk about what cycling infrastructure could look like. And they did a lot of work, making sure that certain programs were run, bike to work type programs, and getting people flashing lights so that they're visible on the road. A lot of educational type stuff. And when that was coming to an end, when the new election came around, they imagined that it would expand and become something more like the Go Smart Committee. And that committee was imagined to be something that included all alternative methods of transportation. So it would include people on scooters, people walking, jogging, maybe riding skateboards, as well as people who ride bikes for transportation and recreation. So in the course of trying to get that committee up and going, it was sent to all the cities and towns, and it was sort of agreed upon that this should be something that's dealt with at the regional district. So here we are today with the IRTSC, which was a select committee. It has two basic tasks at hand. One was to help create a multimodal path along the Dyke Road. This was sort of our pilot project, which in fact we're still working on. And you know, we have 5 jurisdictions working together on that. And the other one, which more relates to this MOU, is how do we all continue to work together on active transportation? And through our deliberations and our work on that select committee, we've arrived at this step here to create this MOU, bring us all to the table. And we'll get into a bit more about how that MOU will work. And we've decided at the regional district board level that this would live best under the regional growth strategy. Now, the regional growth strategy was put together to control basically how the valley grows. You all know this, and to make sure that we maintain the wonderful things that we like about the valley, like the environment, like the community. And so we found a home for it, and we're hoping that this MOU can live there with the support of all the municipalities. Could I get slide number 3, please? So why do this? Well, there's probably a lot of reasons you can all think of. We've listed out a few here. The first one has to do with traffic congestion, and obviously this is a growing problem in the valley. One of the positive effects of alternate transportation is that it does create that nudge effect. So when you get close to capacity on your roadways, if you start just taking away a few of those car trips, you can actually regain flow in your town, in your city. So it could be very helpful and save us a lot of money on expanding our roadways to keep up with transportation needs. There's obvious health benefits. I probably don't have to go into that too much. Comox has been a leader in that, and I would point out that Comox was probably the first to pave a bike lane in the valley, and now of course you have many kilometers of bicycle lanes. So you know the value there, and I think your community understands the value of both active transportation and active lifestyles. Recreation and tourism, people often travel to places that have great active transportation infrastructure, and people come here for a host of other reasons as well, and so we want to be able to offer that. Safety, it's no surprise that a lot of us actually can't afford to drive a car, or maybe too young to drive a car, or can no longer drive a car, and so we want those people to be safe and to be comfortable. Equity, speaking to not being able to afford a car, you know, they estimate that it costs about $6,000 a year to maintain a car, insure it, fuel, all the rest. And that's just an amount that a lot of people don't have. So lastly, we have climate change. And that's something that I know you guys have been working on. And this could be part of the solution. If we want to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, it is showing that I think it's something like 35%. Oh, we got Angela back.
Hey, can you just give us a sec? We're having a technical issue here now.
So we got Angela back, yeah.
Hey, Angela.
She is not yet in.
She's in.
Yep, she's in. Okay. Okay. All right, Dave, we're good to go.
Yeah, so yep. So I was just saying that with the greenhouse gas emissions, it's we know that the valley, the largest producer of greenhouse gas emissions, is in fact our transportation system. So we can make great strides forward by providing people with other modes of transportation. And now if we could go to the next slide, please. And I'll pass it over to Alana Mulally to explain a bit more about the Memorandum of Understanding.
Good afternoon. Thanks very much, Councillor Frisch. Hi, Comox Council. Nice to see you. Thanks for having us. As Councillor Frisch has described, the Transportation Memorandum of Understanding that is in front of you is intended to represent or reaffirm your cooperation as a group of partners. So the parties that are named in the agreement are each of the local governments, the CVRD Board, Comox First Nation, the Ministry of Transportation, and School District Number 71. This MOU is not intended to commit any of the parties to any particular activity. Rather, it's just an agreement about working together and endeavoring to achieve our collective goals around regional transportation systems planning. And then similarly, some of our other goals, as Councillor Frisch has noted, around climate change, public health, and inclusion. The MOU that's in front of you is based on 4 key principles, the first of which is local autonomy. So this MOU respects the individual autonomy of each jurisdiction to plan for transportation within its boundaries. And this MOU does not propose any changes to that. Rather, what it does acknowledge is that we have some pinch points, sort of the shoulders of our communities where we touch. So for example, where the rural area feeds into the municipal area, there are a number of players involved. And we regularly, as I'm sure you do as elected officials, hear from our shared public about some of the challenges that we have when we meet those boundaries and things don't align, particularly in respect to some of our active transportation routes. So this MOU doesn't modify or limit or endeavor to change any of the statutory powers or jurisdiction that anybody has. Rather, it's just about recognizing those real key pinch points. The MOU is also based on the principle of holism, or rather working together on system-based planning, recognizing that transportation is a regional issue that deserves a regional look. Further, the MOU is based on the principles of healthy living and sustainability, recognizing, as Councillor Frisch said, the so very many attributes, the so very many good things that we can achieve when we have modal shift and encourage things like more folks using active transportation methods. And active transportation modes would be all of those modes that are human powered. So cycling, walking, mobility scooters, etc. The 4th principle that the MOU is based on is that of coordinated planning and cooperation, essentially recognizing that when we can work on these things together, we just are going to end up with a better project and certainly with a more connected system. As Councillor Frisch noted, the IRTSC identified the Regional Growth Strategy Service as the best home for this work. And as you know, that's the portfolio that I work on. And staff were able to point the IRTSC to the fact that this is an existing service where all 4 local governments are participants. We have funding through tax requisition and the opportunity to apply for grants, which I'll talk about in a moment. And we also have dedicated staff resources. And those perhaps are some of the challenges that the work of the committee had run into in the past. This MOU proposes some key tasks that the MOU could foster, and they're identified in Part 6 of the MOU. So, just at very high level, this MOU could foster regional transportation data collection and monitoring. As you know, through the RGS service, we collect a lot of data, as do each of you in your jurisdictions. And we are challenged in our ability to share that data regionally and put it into coordinated policy. So this would be one of the tasks that we could undertake. Another key task that could undertake would be to enable elected officials to advocate on a coordinated plan to senior level government, for example. So rather than competing for limited senior government dollars when we want to take, for example, an infrastructure project forward, we can essentially put our collective eggs in one basket and pitch something as a region that we know would serve our region well and help to better knit together some of our existing corridors. A third item that the work could include would be specifically multimodal transportation planning. And I'll talk about that momentarily with a specific project that we have coming up in the near term. And then lastly, one of the key pieces that we can undertake collectively would be public outreach and education. So for example, if we wanted to coordinate on event planning, such as Bike to Work Week, that kind of promotion could be housed within this body of work. The MOU also speaks to the dollars and the cents. As I noted, this MOU does not commit any one party to any additional dollars. Rather, it looks to the Regional Growth Strategy Service as having existing tax requisition that could be used to finance specific objectives or planning work. And then we also have the ability to apply for grants. May I please have the next slide? Thank you. So in respect to the process, I would just like to use an example of a near-term project, which is an active transportation network plan grant that we've applied for through the BC Active Transportation. And I thank Comox Council for agreeing to support a regional initiative, and we've made a regional application. We're very hopeful that we'll hear within the next couple of weeks about the outcome of that adjudication process. So using that project as an example, we identified active transportation network planning as something that we could all benefit from. And again, that's really looking at those shoulders or those pinch points between our jurisdictions. If we're talking about an active transportation network plan here at the RD staff, we would put together a potential scope of work, and then we would run it up through a series of bodies, and the first of whom could be the Regional Growth Strategy Technical Advisory Committee. And you might remember that this is your staff. So the Technical Advisory Committee right now comprises a planning representative from each of the jurisdictions, and we get together minimum 4 times a year, sometimes more, to review any number of things, but this would be a project that we would work and try to shepherd together. We would then take any report with recommendations through to the CBRD board, sort of as the holder of the RGS service, and then it would be referred to each jurisdiction depending on the specific project. And then from there, we could work on something like an implementation agreement under the RGS service that would talk about the nitty-gritty of a specific project. So for example, if we had a capital works project that we identified, that implementation agreement could flesh out construction schedule and financing, for example. Next slide, please. So I've given you the clue about this first project, which is the Active Transportation Network Plan, and that's the one that we're hoping to be able to do. But what we are doing for certain is the Regional Active Transportation Gap Analysis. And this is something that the board approved some funding for in this year's RGS work plan. And so we're just at the staff level developing a scope of work. But as I say, hopeful that we'll be able to get grant funding to do the broader network plan. In terms of what's possible, as you might know, the RGS talks about delivering a regional transportation plan, network plan. And so that could be an eventual outcome where we work together to have a shared regional vision of connected transportation corridors throughout our community. Thank you. I think that's the last slide.
We're
Yes.
a little bit long on our time anyway, so timing is perfect.
Great.
Right, so has anyone got any questions? Comments? Oh,
I have a question.
okay, I'll do Councillor Swift first and then the
Thanks, Alana, and thanks for the presentation. I'm just wondering, you identified limited staff resources from our end, and I'm assuming it's the 4 meetings a year?
Yeah, thank you very much. Through the chair to Councillor Swift, right now that's about the level that we're meeting. As an example, the regional housing needs assessment work that we recently partnered on, we had set up a project team where I had a liaison within your organization, so it was Elliot Turnbull, and I sent Elliot drafts and asked for comments, that sort of thing, to get feedback to make sure that we were meeting the objectives of Comox Council. So I would see that a regional transportation plan would be a very similar exercise.
Thank you.
perfect. And then Pat, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Grant. So I guess my question is to the establishment of the TAC. And I have a question around the voice of 3 groups in the Comox Valley. So how or what is proposed to increase the voice of people with accessibility issues, number 1, kind of the most vulnerable population, and North Island College students? So it might be too specific to busing, but I've taken the bus a lot actually in the last few months and trying to figure that out. And especially through COVID, my car is parked, which is awesome, on my bicycle, like doing cool things like that. So I'm super excited about this strategy, but how do we gather the voice of the people who are using the transportation? And in particular, I'm very concerned about accessibility because, Councillor Frisch and I, we've had that conversation as well around accessibility on the buses and the routes that were, taken away and changed. And so maybe I'll just let you speak to that.
Well, maybe I'll just start off, I'll pass it to you, Lana, but I'll just start off by saying that I don't know that this MOU actually includes transit in particular, although it is definitely considered active transportation in a lot of jurisdictions. But in general, and so not speaking to transit specifically, a lot of the infrastructure that we use for active transportation will also be used for people with mobility issues. But I don't know, Anna, if you have anything to add to that.
Certainly. Thank you, Councillor Fish. Councillor McKenna, thank you for the question. I think something that you're speaking to resonates with me on a number of our projects that we're working on through the RGS service. And I, really it's about complete communities and including all of our citizens. So I think that any of the projects that we'll be undertaking, we'll be really keen to adopt what's, thrown around in a lot of planning circles now, something called an equity lens. And equity planning is really about looking at who gets to participate, but also who isn't participating or isn't being consulted about their participation and why. And I think that is when we're speaking about marginalized populations, whether they be marginalized because of income or mobility or whatever the case might be, I think we really have to take a bit of a shift on all of our project planning and look at how we not just consult groups, but how we really look at all of our systems and consider whether or not they include all of the people who live here and call our valley home. So your point is very well taken. I would suggest that the best way that we can do that, including all of our citizens, is right at the beginning when we're planning out that engagement plan and the scope of the work.
So it's not something you would want to include specifically in the MOU?
Through you, Councillor Grant, to Councillor McKenna, I think that there could be. We talked about whether the language around equity could be added to the MOU, and I think it's a worthwhile consideration.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree that accessibility does tie into active transportation. It's just that we have an existing service for transit, so I don't know that we were looking at reorganizing the whole thing. Would that be accurate in your mind, Elena?
Through Councillor Grant, perhaps I'm not. Perhaps I'm missing something, but I think where I was hearing Councillor McKenna's question was around whether or not we could think about adding that lens. Maybe I spun it into something that's close to my heart and not really the question that was being asked. But I think that within the MOU, acknowledging the role of making sure that we're including as many of our citizens as possible would be worthwhile. And that's not to commit any of the specific, for example, like we've got the Transit Future Action Plan work, although currently paused, we have that, in the medium term coming up. So not that it would direct that work, but certainly I would hope that plan would also have that kind of inclusionary type thinking as well.
That's where I think your main concerns, Councillor McKenna, are coming from, are around transit and accessibility to transit in particular, or are you also talking about how we mesh transit with, our pedestrian and cycling infrastructure and our other mobility infrastructure?
Yeah, I think you've both got the message that in my question is that if the ultimate goal is a regional transport, maybe it's not the ultimate goal, but one of the goals is a regional transportation plan, many voices need to feed up to ensure that plan works for all. That's my main comment, and I think you've got my understanding.
And I would also point out that the way for that maybe to come forward is a delegation comes to you, to your council, and your council feels that it's extremely important that this work its way up to either this, to this working group or to transit, and you guys can push it up through this MOU if it ties into active transportation. So that might be a positive outlet for that.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you good with that, Pat, or do you got some more?
I think I'm good. I would like to see something probably included in the MOU because I think that would be more clear. But I think you've got what I'm saying. So I'm answered for now. Thank you.
Perfect. We got anybody else with any questions, comments? Seeing none. Thank you very much, guys. Angela, it was nice to see you. Hear from you. And so we'll move along from there. And
thanks, guys.
Would it be helpful? Sorry, just a quick question. Would it be helpful if I sent my notes about what I would have said so that they could be reflected in minutes from this afternoon?
Sure.
We thought Dave was reading your mind, so we thought we had it all. But no, by all means, just, yeah, send them through. That'd be great.
Yeah, her presentation was far better than the one I gave. I'm sorry about that.
Thank you for your presentation.
That'll be great. Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys. Have a good night.
Okay. Good night.
Right. Okay. Losing them all? Okay, so we'll move on to regular council meeting minutes, Wednesday, May 20th for approval.
Move.
And any discussion? Everybody's happy, so all those in favor? Carried. And we will move on to unfinished business management report for June 3rd for receipt.
Move.
And questions, comments? None, all those in favor? Oh, are you in favor or did you have a question?
Actually, you know what, it's okay. It's very minor.
Okay.
I'm in favor.
Okay, so all those in favor? And that's carried. And we move on to UBCM poverty reduction strategy grant application, and they're looking for our support for the regional districts. So, motion? Absolutely. And second? Okay, and questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. And we will move on to the planning report, PR 23 patio liquor license application review, Land and Sea Brewing Company. And the resolution is long. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the basis is that these are our comments the staff have put together. If you have anything you want to add to that, this would be the time, or if you're unhappy with some of it. So if we can have a motion on that.
We'll move them all for discussion.
Yep. And seconder?
I'll second.
Okay, any questions? Pat?
Yeah, thank you. Just a point of discussion on this is, we see many in favor and, quite a few opposed as well. And I just wonder if there's a way for Land and Sea to go back and open the discussion around how to solve, in particular, their specific neighbors that are still upset about the parking situation that's happening there. I know it's a longstanding discussion, but it really resonated through the opposition letters. Parking is still a large issue.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. I'll pass this over to the planner and just see if, because what we're doing is sending this to the used to be the Liquor Control Board to pass our comments along. So I'm not sure if that's really where this fits, but I'll pass it on to the planner to give us some advice on that.
No, that's not the option for council is whether or not they wish to provide comment. And if they wish to provide comment, these are the items that are noted in the recommendation that must be addressed. So in terms of further direction to discuss parking issues, if council wishes to do that, it would be a separate item, a separate initiative, either in terms of contacting the applicant or taking it for the works.
So could council withhold their positive comments to the LCRB in order to have discussions with the applicant to deal with the parking issues before those comments were passed on?
My understanding is yes, they could delay or table, doesn't matter if they so wish.
Is that what you were looking for, Councillor McKenna?
Not exactly. I mean, I'm in favor of this patio. I think it's great for our community. I just wish there was a way that there still seems to be some animosity amongst the businesses. That's all.
So I think what I'm looking at here is that I think that most of us are probably in favor of this, but we'd like to actually engage with the owner of this to say, could you go and really come up with some kind of plan for the parking?
Yeah.
I know Maureen had comments on that, so maybe if you want
Yeah, well, I know when we passed this in the beginning of time and the Land and Sea opened, we were concerned about parking then. And I guess the hope was that it would settle out with the tap house and a few other opportunities, but it still seems to be a real issue for some people there. And I know they've made arrangements with Pentecostal Church, and I know they've got signage up on their door, and I think they're doing a lot, but I would like to really see a little bit more. I agree with you, Councillor McKinnon, that I'd like to see some kind of plan coming from them going forward to put these other businesses at ease. Yeah, otherwise, I'm in favor of this. I think it's a great location for a patio. And I just would like it to go ahead. And I would be cautious about delaying it, given we're already into June and they're going to lose a lot of their patio season. So I'm wondering if we can kind of work with them at some other level regarding the parking.
Well, I see the guys have been cooking something up.
Yeah.
So I think from what I'm hearing, you'd like to pass this, but still have some discussion with the owners regarding the parking, without delaying this if you got a.
So it's definitely something we could do, but understand that once this is applied, council will lose any leverage you have in the situation. So now you could hold this out and say, we want to see something done, and when we have seen something done, we'll approve it. If you move forward and approve it today, and I understand you want to go through on the timelines, and this is dependent on their capital investment as well. But if you were to approve that, what we would be doing is simply having a nice conversation with them and saying, can you please take more steps, which is fine, something we can do, as long as council understands that the leverage you do have in the situation, should you want to apply that leverage, is now.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm also in favor of this patio, and I'm just conflicted with this whole parking thing because it's the town of Comox bylaws and zoning bylaws that permit such little parking. So I'm not sure why we would put the onus on the owner specifically when it's our own set of rules that allowed it to go forward. So I think they're two separate issues. And if that's something that we want to deal with within the town, for example, the Church Street Tap House, the town of Comox ended up putting up those parking spots all along Church Street to facilitate parking there, even though the whole facility was approved without parking. So it's similar to Land and Sea. I see them as two separate issues. And if we're, if we want to talk about parking, maybe that's a whole different thing. And we have to talk about, public transit and, like we just heard, like different modes of transport. I think that's something else. But I think I'm in favor of the patio as it is. And I would encourage like other councillors to approve this, which I think everyone seems to be in favor or amicable to the idea of getting this done ASAP, especially in the midst of COVID, where outdoor patios seem to be sort of like the saving grace for our local businesses.
Sure. Councillor Minions.
Yeah, I would similarly agree with that. Time seems to be of the essence. Installing it now would be a challenge to their business, kind of for business recovery. So I think we have with COVID, the amount of people they can have inside and outside for potentially 6 to 18 months is there. So even though we may lose our leverage, I think there's the option of looking at parking overall. And so I would be in favor of not stalling it and having more conversations about what they can do and what potentially we can do with parking. But I think we have a bit of time with the capacities that businesses can have for a while. So
okay. And then
be in favor of
Councillor Swift.
That's basically what
So
not like we're all saying
a suggestion might be to pass this motion, and then if someone has a further motion regarding going and talking to about parking, we can entertain a further motion after that. That make sense?
Yeah.
Everybody happy? Okay, so any other comments on this? All those in favor? And that passes. And then did somebody want to make a subsequent motion regarding going and talking to them about parking? Or have we got a suggestion from, let's put the CAO on his hot seat here.
It would just be that the town of Comox reach out to the establishment to encourage them to seek alternative parking arrangements and a more harmonious relationship with their neighbors.
Maybe promote, like promotional biking, you know, like who knows,
Yep.
like there you get some play.
Okay, well, let's get a motion on the table first. So somebody want to make that motion?
I'll make that.
Okay, and then second it. Okay, and then discussion. So,
No, that's good.
yeah.
That's good. I didn't realize they were doing some promotional stuff around
Yeah.
active transportation.
Okay, so can you just read that motion back so we know exactly? Because you didn't even made it up. I just read it down.
So, what do you do there?
Reach out to Lindsay to encourage them to
Examine extra parking opportunities as well as establish a harmonious relationship with their neighbors.
Everybody's good with that?
Yeah, I think, for my part, I think if they just advertised, I haven't seen any notification you can go park in a Pentecostal church, for instance. So maybe they just need to put up some signage or make people aware. But, or I haven't been there recently either, so maybe they have it already. But anyway, it's something to consider. Just options for parking.
Okay, so we had the motion. Oh, Pat, go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a question to planning, like, you know, and this is just off the top of my head, I know that that's a main thoroughfare, but is there opportunity for parking on that street on one side or the other? It's a very, very wide street. I don't know if there is.
No, is the short of the answer. It's, we got a bike lane on both sides, right? It's actually designed, that arterial is designed to go up to 4 lanes as traffic increases. So putting any kind of parking on an arterial will slow the capacity, it'll slow the movement, speed of vehicles, which are two things that we're trying to increase the efficiency of on our arterial. You put it on now, you would not be able, in my view, you would not be able to get it off in the future. It would be very difficult. Because businesses, once there is public parking, they start building it into their business plan. As it is right now, our standards are, this is the minimum, with the idea that there's nothing stopping a business from providing more parking. And that's a business decision and the viability of the business. And if you have private property, you police things like who parks on your lot and who does not allow to park on the lot. So it's really to the actual property owners themselves, the ultimate responsibility.
Thank you.
Fair enough. Okay, Councillor Bissinger.
Yeah, I'll probably just be voting against that motion, and I appreciate where it comes from, but I find it a bit trivial when they have set up an agreement with the Pentecostal church. They are offering like discounts for people that use any type of other transportation other than cars. So I don't want to be, you know, babysitting a business that already seems to be, you know, good neighbors within the community. I think maybe it's just like some old blood from when they first opened up. A lot of the adjoining businesses, you know, felt a bit of the pressure from it and a lot of the overflow parking. And perhaps they still do, so I apologize to them for that. But I feel like Land and Sea has been doing a lot of progress towards, you know, lessening the impact on the surrounding businesses and residents. So I'll vote against it.
Okay, Carol and Stephanie.
It's wonderful to hear that they have all of these, you know, the discounts and stuff. But I think maybe getting that information out to the community so that they know that that's available, because I mean, I don't think that everybody knows that. But yeah, I don't think the letter, I mean, we can word it nicely, we can be neighborly as we expect everybody else to be, right? And they've always shown themselves to be responsible and community oriented in that way. So I think that it would be well received, and yeah, I think that it would be a good move.
Fair enough. Anyone else got anything? Seeing no further questions, all those in favor? That's carried, and all opposed, sorry. You don't want to oppose. Okay, we'll move on to special reports, and that's Comox Valley Regional District meeting minutes for April 28th, 2020, and May 12th. For receipt, for receipt.
Move.
Second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that's carried, and we will move on to bylaws. So the Comox Business Regulation Amendment bylaw for adoption.
Move.
And comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Let me find the last bit. Okay, and then new business is the motion to reopen the Comox recreation facilities. And this is a bit of a standard amendment that's been going around to most of the communities in BC at this time. So someone want to make the motion?
I'll make it.
A second.
And any questions or comments?
I just wanted.
Okay, we'll go with Councilor Minions first. She beat you just by a hair there.
I'm just curious, once this motion goes forward, how soon out to the public some of the regulations, like for what I see is once the date is out there, people will kind of maybe expect some things to be back exactly as they were before.
Yep.
So I'm just curious what the timing of when the date, when we release that it's opening again and when kind of the new, what it will look like. It'd be good to have those more, maybe it's more just a comment.
Yeah, so we're planning to put out the date of the opening in advance of when the opening is actually going to happen, because there's going to be a different way that the public and the consumers are going to have to interact with the business. So we want to put the opening date out there with enough time that people can start to wrap their heads around what this is going to look like.
So launched at the same time, the date and the protocol.
That's right.
Together.
Yeah.
That's kind of just, not that it's opening May and then, by the way.
No, our goal is not to have people show up not knowing what's happening. So we'll try and.
I wasn't expecting that. So, you know, people are all so excited to go back and they're like, we're going to go for hours.
Just to go do
It's just,
anything.
you know,
A haircut's exciting these days.
And so one of the benefits in speaking with the other communities, and I won't get into the plans because they want to release that, but it does appear we're all going to be on not the exact same system, but something very similar. So everybody is going to get used to the fact that this is how they're going to have to interact with these facilities.
no surprise.
Yeah.
And then, did you want to go? Or did she?
No, that was basically I wanted to make sure that everybody's well aware of the protocols and that, you know, if that future shutdown is a possibility again, so that people get confused and yeah, make sure that everything's good.
Perfect. Anything else from anyone? Oh, Pat, go ahead.
Yeah, so I have no doubt in my mind we're going to follow all the safety protocols. We've been excellent up to this point, so I'm really excited about the facilities opening. You mentioned some not ability to take some tender and that people with passes will have to change. So will there be, if a pass holder goes in, is there an opportunity for them? Are they going to lose money in this deal, or is that like, can you explain to me a bit how that's going to work?
So we haven't decided completely on the system that's going to work yet, but if we aren't able to allow people to use their passes, they'll be able to continue having them frozen and use them when it starts up. They're going to be able to get a refund on their pass, or what they could do is take the value that they have left on their pass and put it onto their online account to use for drop-in. So they'll have all the options.
Great, so multiple options. That's awesome.
And Councillor Swift.
Yeah, I guess I'm just curious about things like the yoga classes and things that are mostly contract.
Yep.
And is it the hope that they would be opening up again? Or would they be able to do it at the same level? Or do you know?
We are working in the rooms to make sure that there's social distancing actually physically through tape or other markings on the floor to allow for different people to run programs, and then the people that come in will know what space they can occupy. Our hope is that starting in, I'm hesitant and I'll put everything subject to change. We are hoping starting in July, we're able to have those type of classes start to come in. We do know just through COVID and the amount of spaces we have, it's going to limit the number of people that are allowed in classes. We do know we're going to have to move equipment out of the gym, which is going to limit more space because that's got to go places. So the amount of space that we do have available is going to be reduced, which is likely going to mean a reduced amount and type of classes that can be offered. So we still plan on offering classes and courses, but will it be at the level it was last year? I really doubt that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we got anyone else? All right, so seeing none, all those in favor? And that carries. And we move down to appointment of acting mayor. So as you all know, Mayor Arnott suddenly got called in to have a surgery today, which I understand has gone well, and he's actually been texting people already, so that's a good sign. But he could be gone for a bit of a time period, so it was thought that perhaps we should have an acting mayor put in place. So if someone would like to move that myself become appointed as acting mayor during his absence.
Move.
I'll move that.
And a seconder?
Second.
Any comment? Watch what you say. And seeing no comment, all those in favor? And that passes. Well, I think that's a good thing. I'm not sure. You know, I'll let you know in a while here.
Can I ask you a question, Councillor Grant? Is Mayor Arnott able to, well, I guess, would he be able to like log in through some of our meetings and vote, or is he just totally off until he's back from his recovery?
Well, my take is he would be off till he's back from his recovery, but I'll pass to Jordan. He would know better than I.
So you could have a situation where if he wanted to return and you would have somebody else chair, that is still okay. Yeah. So he could come back. So one of the aspects we've got in now is approve the leave of absence. So if he misses too many meetings, he doesn't lose his seat at the table. But you can have the mayor come back and have somebody else chair the meeting if that's what your question is.
Okay, thank you.
So he could zoom in with his little hospital gown and his butt hanging out. Zoom in and do that. I don't know if we'll see that.
No one wants to see that.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that, and we'll just take things as they go. So far, he's doing well, so that's good news.
That's good news.
We need the first part of it. The approving the leave of absence.
Oh, sorry. So we also need a motion that council approves a medical leave of absence for Mayor Arnott until such time as he is able to do his duties.
Second.
And any comments or questions? All those in favor? And that's carried. So with correspondence, we have no correspondence. I did get a call from a guy on Lazo Road. You probably saw his letter regarding traffic and noise and such. I suggested to him that he come next meeting as a delegation and just give us a little more bit of an update on what's really going on out there, and we can take it from there. So that may come next week. And then we'll go to reports from council members. So we'll quickly go around the table. If we can keep it brief and move along. So we'll start with Nicole.
I think my only meeting was a library board meeting, and they're just starting, I believe it's next week, but I'll get the date and send it out to do door-to-door pickup for library books and movies. So they're just doing a very soft open, but we've had some residents that really were concerned about not being able to use the library. So that's kind of like the rec center adjusted. I believe the date was around next week. Reopening.
Perfect. And then we'll go, Pat, you're next in line, believe it or not. Works on TV.
Okay, so I attended the Comox Valley Coalition and Homelessness meeting today, and they're still collaborating strongly with all the groups in the community, and they're rolling along. They will normally suspend meetings in the summer, but they're going to continue to hold meetings as we move through the pandemic, and just to ensure the vulnerable populations are being assisted to the best of their ability. And I also attended the Community Justice Center meetings, and of course they hold tribunals, and during this time of pandemic, they're still in process of figuring out how to do that to the best of their ability while keeping people physically distanced. So that's where I've been.
Perfect, thank you. And Councillor Bissinger.
Yeah, I had no meetings, but I was chatting with Councillor Morin from the city of Courtney, so helped her with the motion that Courtney just did too for the urban agriculture. So that motion passed within their community, and I think they're gonna link up with the town of Comox so that we're online with our urban agriculture and small scale commercial policy or bylaw that we're working towards. So good news there.
Great, thank you. And then Councillor McGowan.
I attended the first Museum and Archives meeting in a while, talking about how we are going to reopen and what that's going to look like, and looking at hopefully maybe July, not sure. Also attended Food Policy Council and the Food Disruption Subcommittee. They've got information back from the Farmer Survey that's going to be very telling in the future about what they need, what kind of supports they need in the future. Oh yes, what kind of, we're looking at giving feedback to EOCs about food policy and things that went well, things that didn't,
Great. And then Councillor Swift.
Okay, I attended a field trip to the water treatment plant as it's being constructed, and it was very impressive. Where we got to see where the deep water intake is, and the foundations of the actual treatment plant are going up pretty quickly, and it's going to keep us in good stead for water for quite a long time. So that was nice to see. I attended the regional district meeting, and there wasn't a lot that came out of that meeting that concerned us particularly. It was a lot of electoral services. And then there was some significant in-camera meetings, which is not revealed yet. Attended the EOC meeting update last week on Friday, and then today again, and we decided that we're only going to meet as required now, so there won't be a regular update, but Jesse Kapler will be sending out an update from the EOC probably on a weekly basis now. And they're beginning to scale the EOC down and move teams back into their municipalities. They're not going to be able to do a complete report because they're really preparing for the second wave of the pandemic in the fall. So what they're saying at the moment is they will do a phase 1 report, which will probably be complete by August, and they'll come and present it to us at that time. This has really stretched the EOC a little bit because they are more prepared for earthquakes, floods, fires, that kind of thing. So this was something that was different for everybody across the province. And then just one more update, the Philberg has really been scratching their heads about how to create some income for themselves. And they're hoping that they're going to be able to reopen their gift shop. So stay tuned and we'll get more information maybe mid-June regarding that. And that's my report.
Perfect, thank you. And I also attended the regional district board meeting. I met with the guys up at the Tap House regarding their little patio. Not a big deal, but anytime you get to a little Tap House for a meeting, always go. Met with the Economic Development Society a couple of times. I spoke with that gentleman out on Lazo regarding the Lazo noise and stuff out there. And I also toured the water treatment plant. If you get a chance to go and see that as it's being built, it's pretty impressive actually. It's expensive, but it's good. So that's what I've been doing. So we have no media for questions, no public, so motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Always unanimous. Thanks, guys.